Welcome to Tales from the Bridge. We have Seanan McGuire on the show today, and I have to say this must be one of the most unexpectedly entertaining conversations we've had with anyone on the show. She's just a riot. And we've also got Miranda joining us to talk with Seanan. We really hope you enjoy this one because we had a lot of fun. All right, let's make our way over to the bridge. Are very happy to have Seanan McGuire with us today. Encrypted, Wayward Children, The October Day, and the Newsflash books are among many series that Seanan has written. Seanan is also a Nebula Award, John W. Campbell, and Hugo Award winner, and there are many other awards and nominations besides these few. You may also know the works of Mira Grant, which is a pseudonym for works of Seanan, often in the more science fiction horror genre. So, Seanan, we are very happy to have you today. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start off with a really difficult question for you. I don't know if it's a question as much as I just want your opinion, but I've been exposed to the new My Little Pony movie twice in the last couple of days because I have toddlers. Is that something you watched? Were you excited for that? Or are you just like, no, I'm not being interested in My Little Pony?
I cannot claim to not be fucking interested in My Little Pony, given that I own roughly 3,000 of them. There's an entire room in my house just dedicated to My Little Pony. They have been a constant part of my life since I was 4 years old, and I have never gotten over that first hit of vaguely narcotic 1980s plastic. It was either carcinogenic or addictive. I don't know what, but toys had a smell when you opened them, and it was this fresh plastic smell, and it rewired your fucking brain. I don't know. Generation 5, which has just kicked off, which is that new My Little Pony movie, I thought that they made some big but currently understandable mistakes. It's the first time we've had a new generation that was directly yoked to a previous generation. Because Generation 5 references Generation 4 as being something that absolutely happened. It has faded into myth and legend, but it means that it's a sequel rather than a new standalone reality, which every other generation has been. I'm a Generation 1 girl, so I live in Dream Valley. That's where I'm at. Equestria can go jump off a cliff. And I am personally offended as both a feminist and a lover of toys by the fact that Generation 4 became culturally dominant because dudes not only decided that that it was okay to be into My Little Pony, but that they were going to come in, piss all over everything, and claim that territory as their own. The word brony is a statement of conquest. You can't just be a My Little Pony fan. You've got to be a pony bro. I had someone try to tell me I was a Pegasister, and it is a miracle I did not commit assault. I am not the protagonist's sister in my home fucking franchise. My Little Pony is the only media franchise that I have been a part of intellectually since before Doctor Who. You know, it got in as soon as the door was cracked open. I have always been able to be the protagonist in My Little Pony. I am not the protagonist's sister. So I think that Generation 5 has made some starting errors, but I can understand, even as I get mad about it, that Generation 4 has a huge cultural footprint. It impacted with the world outside the playroom in a way that no other My Little Pony franchise has done. No other generation has succeeded in doing. Generation 1, you can make an argument for rewrote the way that girls' toys and girls' franchises worked. It seems unrealistic to say, but at the time, My Little Pony was really the first time that a girl toy line had said, you know what? We're going to be a fucking fantasy novel and y'all can cope with it. It predates everything else. It's before Rainbow Bright. It's before the Care Bears. It's even before Rose Petal Place and herself, the elf. My Little Pony changed the field, but it got stuck in that little girl space. It was not allowed out. Generation 2, I would like to get some of the toy designers from Generation 2 drunk because I am 90% sure that it was an intentional attempt to kill the brand. Generation 3 kind of came and went and the pony collectors noticed, but it never got a lot of traction. And then G4 actually went global in a way that My Little Pony has never done before. So
When was
Generation
that in the
5,
2000s then? When's Generation 2 and 3? The
okay,
90s?
so Generation 1 ran for approximately 12 years, starting in 1983, 2 or 3. And we had 12 years of Generation 1. Then the toy line ended because all the kids had outgrown it. And that is the natural cycle of toy lines. If you are into something at age 6, you will probably stay into it until roughly age 10, at which point all of your toys get handed down to the next kid in line, to the 7 or 8-year-old who thinks they're cool because they belonged to Big Brother. They were great, but you are never going back because now those are baby toys. And that's why you see this cycle of toys becoming softer, rounder, and more nursery school oriented as a line goes on. The redesigns are to appeal to the age group that has now become the target market. So Generation 2 was in the 90s, and Generation 2 kind of looked like bugs. I don't fully understand any of the design choices made by Generation 2 My Little Pony, other than they were all made by previous Kenner toy designers who had wound up working for Hasbro after Hasbro ate their home company. They had previously been Star Wars designers, and suddenly they're doing My Little Pony. I really feel like My Little Pony Generation 2 was purely resentment-based. And then Generation 3 was in the early 2000s, and they were a return kind of to that Generation 1 form. You didn't know what you were doing when you decided to open with a My Little Pony question, did you? Kind of a return to form. They've got a bigger, chunkier body. They also tend to have magnets in one of the front hooves, and you can hang them off your refrigerator or stick them to the side of your computer and give your IT guy a small heart attack. Generation 3 was eventually followed by 3.5, which was that infantilization that I referred to before. So they were basically all soft toys, huge bodies, very kawaii. And then we moved into Generation 4, which was Friendship is Magic. And that was Lauren Faust's baby. But it was done using design elements and character concepts originally created by Bonnie Zachary, the woman who originated My Little Pony, and does not get nearly enough credit outside of the pony community for her contributions to not only our childhoods, but multiple generations of childhoods in between. Generation 5, which is the single most corporate and intentionally designed My Little Pony generation ever, because it's been made by people who are going, we remember that Generation 4 was money. Can we have money again? Let's try to do all the things that made Generation 4 work. And my favorite thing about Generation 5 is honestly watching the bronies cry. Like, I have just been watching, oh my God, it's not My Little Pony. Oh my God, they killed My Little Pony. This is so wrong. It's so ugly. It's so wrong. I'm like, fuck you. I have 3,000 Generation 1 ponies who would like you to fuck right off into the sun for having this response. You say this like My Little Pony is not Doctor Who, like My Little Pony does not regenerate periodically. You know, I understand being upset that the thing you loved has changed. I have shared that experience many times. Claiming that Generation 4 was the pinnacle of My Little Pony and we were never going to move on is as unrealistic as me demanding that Hasbro break out the Generation 1 molds and put my toy line back into production today.
So that's an awesome sketch. And we have though in our house, so like I have a 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, and and she grew up on this latest generation of My Little Pony, and so our family game, Monopoly game, is the My Little Pony, the latest generation, like Equestria generation. And now you have me re-examining the whole thing. And
I mean, especially if you're talking about a 12-year-old, I am 100% in favor of Generation 4 being their generation. My grumpiness is not the 12-year-old that is sad. My grumpiness is the people my age who were yelling about how this was going to destroy My Little Pony because it's not real My Little Pony. And I'm like, y'all are the reason that kids couldn't Google My Little Pony for several years because the amount of pornography that they would then be immediately exposed to was horrifying.
Yeah, that's 100% correct.
Yeah, I say this as a grown adult who is totally fine with the existence of cartoon porn, but if the franchise is aimed at 4 to 10-year-olds, as My Little Pony originally was, maybe some of that stuff is not okay and should not be tagged My Little Pony. Generation 1, we had our porn.
I didn't know about the My Little Pony porn, but did you, in the Generation 5 movie, they use, they
use a clip from My Little Pony Generation 1, our television show, which was My Little Pony and Friends. The actual clip is from the My Little Pony and Tails continuation that only aired originally in the United Kingdom, and I was delighted to see it.
And the Dance Dance Revolution machine, did you see that part?
Of course I did. Everyone in the universe sent me the clip of that part.
I'm sure they did, yeah. I thought of you as well.
Yeah. In case you're not aware, Sam, I have a Dance Dance Revolution machine. It is in my garage. Her name is Baby, and I love her very much.
Nice.
So crossing over My Little Pony and DDR was basically a guarantee that everybody and their sister was going to make sure I knew the movie was coming.
I noticed, like, we were passing around some material, and a quote jumped out at me at the beginning of "We Are All Misfit Toys" in the aftermath of the Velveteen War, and it states here that you may or may not be the advanced scout of a race of alien plant people. So I'm curious when we can expect their arrival. Will their rule be benevolent, and will we be forced to a meat-only diet?
Oh, we're going to eat all y'all.
Oh, okay, I see.
So the plant armada thing, we don't know, honestly. I understand how it sounds, but when I was 3, so slightly before My Little Pony, but young enough that you would not expect an ongoing science fictional delusion, when I was 3, I'd been playing in the woods behind my grandparents' house. And I came out of the woods at dinner time, kind of muddy and scratched up, as was frequent for a 3-year-old allowed to wander the woods alone, which was very irresponsible, come to think of it. But I came out of the woods and informed my mother very gravely that the aliens had taken her real baby, but it was okay because I was here now. And since that point, since I was 3, I have been very firm on the point that I am the advanced vanguard of an invading species of alien plant people that is coming to destroy your puny planet. There was a period when I really had no friends in school because that was how I would introduce myself, especially to people's parents. And my theory is either A, I hit my head in the woods, had a really vivid hallucination because I was a 3-year-old, interpreted it the only way I could, or B, the aliens actually did come and eat a small child, and I am what they left behind. I don't know. It has been part of how I interact with reality for so long at this point that I cannot tell you, is it a delusion? Is it a joke? What is it? We have no idea. But my theory is if the Armada is actually coming, they embed their scouts far ahead of their actual arrival so that we can acquire cultural literacy. And that way, when we get here and start to eat all y'all fuckers, any of you who try to throw up guerrilla warfare tactics or form a third column, we will have people who can go, no, you can't eat the dog. If you eat the dog, she's going to set you on fire. Don't eat the dog. Leave the dog alone.
Have you ever incorporated that into any of your writing, as an autobiographical kind of?
So I have written quite a few stories about alien plants coming to eat everyone because it makes me happy. And I have a Mira Grant novel that we have not yet sold. I need to revise it, and that means finding time. Called Overgrowth. That is basically the manifesto of the Armada. It is from the point of someone who went into the woods when she was 3 and got eaten. But in her case, she can actually prove it. So that is the only degree to which it is autobiographical, is somebody saying, oh, I got eaten. And then the aliens show up and it's all plants. And it's kind of War of the Worlds meets The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. Gets really philosophical about the nature of humanity. And also a lot of people get eaten.
Cool. I feel that's always the end result, right? So you end up on someone's dinner table.
Yep.
That's where things happen.
With your other Mira Grant book, like the Parasitology trilogy, I read somewhere that the research, like the tapeworm research, was empirical. So did you get a tapeworm by accident, or did you choose to do that to research, just to make the Symbicorp stuff real?
I got a tapeworm very intentionally. His name was Timmy. I swallowed him in egg form. I swallowed him in caplet form. So I probably swallowed about 800 tapeworm eggs. But Timmy was the one who won the day, and he was with me for slightly longer than planned because my original course of antiparasitics did not succeed. So I had to do a second course, and that was a lot of fun. And it meant that for a while I could refer to myself in the royal we without having to be royalty. Just, we are hungry. We would like to do this. Not to get political, but part of why I've been a little baffled by the sudden embrace of ivermectin as somehow being an antiviral, which that's just not how viruses work, people, is because I was on ivermectin to clear out Timmy. It is not a fun drug. This is not an exciting recreational thing. I guess that if you feel terrible because you're taking ivermectin, you might not notice that you feel terrible because you got COVID, but it was not fun. Out of all the many drugs I have taken, that is at the bottom of the list of shit I'd do again. And I don't do recreational drugs. Everything I'm talking about is illegal. I enjoyed the prednisone more than I enjoyed the ivermectin, and prednisone turns me into a raging bitch. I believe you should do your research to whatever degree you possibly can without endangering your own life. Timmy was not a pork tapeworm, which is the most common kind found in humans. He was a goat tapeworm, which meant that the chances of him migrating to my brain were much lower. There are types of tapeworm that I would not voluntarily ingest, including the coyote tapeworm, which preferentially eats the human eye. So Timmy was fine. I was under medical supervision the whole time.
Were you writing parasitology, Parasite, at the time that you had Timmy?
I was
living with you.
I was.
Did it make writing it more terrifying? Because the not to get spoilery for people that haven't read Parasite, but they're not good to have in you.
Well,
in the world.
Yeah, whether they're good or bad is kind of up for interpretation. But the parasites in the parasitology trilogy are genetically modified. They contain human DNA and they contain splices from multiple other species that would make it easier for them to do some stuff that you really don't want a parasite inside your body to be doing. Timmy was just a bog standard, completely unmodified tapeworm. Honestly, I was more concerned that, I would fail to wash my hands properly and give someone a tapeworm than anything else. I got real good at washing my hands while I had Timmy. It was like having a crash course repeat of kindergarten.
And you were pro going into COVID. You already seem like a pro going into COVID, though. You've got the, you've got feed that I'm reading right now. I mean, it's not necessarily the exact same thing, but it's a virus and it turns people into zombies. I kind of think a lot of people were hoping that the COVID was going to turn people into viruses in a way, or into zombies or something. I kind of was. Or at least the vaccine. I got the double dose. I'm waiting to turn into a fucking zombie because,
I got the triple dose. I want to know when the mutation comes. I have been promised tentacles and melting flesh and all of this shit, and all I got was a sore arm and increased immunity. What the shit?
Yeah, really disappointing.
Yeah, no super hearing, no telepathic anything, nothing.
It's coming. They're saying it's a couple of years, right? It's all the side effects are going to appear in a couple of years. So you write about that a lot.
Literally never been a vaccine that worked that way, ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Even negative vaccine reactions have happened in a short enough period of time that we would have seen them by now. Sorry.
That's fine. Well, so on that topic, with feed, we get the crazy right wingers. Now, I don't want to get too political here, but it's a common theme that.
Ever wondered what it takes to make it in the movie business? Peel back the curtain with 4-6 Success Filmmaking. 4-6 Success Filmmaking is where filmmakers share their stories and the secrets.
It's beyond competitive out there.
There have been movies that it's taken me 10 years to get made.
Don't wait to create. You've got to just keep making stuff.
Tune in to 4-6 Success Filmmaking for your dose of cinematic realness, direct from the voices that have lived it.
There are also left-wingers that are cheerfully messing things up for the rest of us. It is a left-wing politician who has proposed making it legal to deny medical care to people who are not vaccinated. You know, as soon as you start thinking that you are the one who gets to decide who is and is not a person, you have put yourself into a position to fuck things up. I think a lot of what we've seen in the COVID outbreak, that is stuff that I predicted to one degree or another because it was predictable, is the use of weaponized false news. And that is because everybody likes to have the inside scoop. Everybody likes to say absolutely with certainty that they know what's really going on. And mistrust of government in North America is very deeply rooted, especially in parts of the United States, but I know it is also going on in Canada. And there are good reasons for even the left-wing people to mistrust their government in certain places. We're not that far out from involuntary medical experimentation on citizens. You know, this is stuff that has happened. I tried to be as even-handed as I could with the Newsflash books, which is why our presidential candidate in feed is a Republican. He's just a Republican, more like the ones that I remember knowing before things got so incredibly weaponized. It's really about the false news to me, you know, and this particular pandemic has happened during a beautiful, perfect storm of tribalization and people being told, only I will tell you the truth. With a Calvinistic view of health. We've got the most amazingly Calvinistic view of health, and that's just not how health works. But right now, there are people who truly, genuinely believe, even if they would not say it out loud because it would feel inappropriate, that if you get sick, it's because you did something to deserve it. You must have been immoral. You must have sinned. You must have mistreated your body in some way. You must have had personal failing that lets you get sick. And that's a very comforting way to look at the world, because if only being personally imperfect lets you catch COVID or lets you catch the zombie virus or lets you catch face melter or whatever, all I have to do is be flawless. And as long as I can do that, I'll be fine. And everyone wants to think that they personally can be flawless.
Yeah, it really is. You're right. It is a perfect storm in terms of weaponized news, fake news. This is something we see a great deal even here, and the accusations of fake news is just generally like news you don't like suddenly, and has to be fake. And yeah, this idea that if I'm virtuous, I'll somehow, I'll be okay, and it's the sinners who are going to get sick and die. That feels a little more American to me, but I mean, there's a puritanism to it.
We saw it come out of England too. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, we've got anti-vaxxers protesting at hospitals. Like we've got our crazy too. I do feel like it's people who want an easy explanation. The idea that something big is happening is more than they can take, and so there has to be another explanation. There has to be a conspiracy. There has to be all these things, because they just can't get their heads around it, right? And so
things can't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, and I say this as someone who loves to write medical fiction, okay, living through the world's most boring ongoing pandemic has been hell, because I love pandemics. They're a special interest of mine. I get excited by so I'm sitting here being like, things that I said would happen are happening. I'm a genius. Oh God, I'm a genius. I'm miserable because it's awful. And if I get excited about it, I'm a monster. But if I don't get excited about it, I am literally stabbing myself in the brain all the time. This new variant has a proposed R0 of 15. That is a number that was previously only theoretical. I am incredibly distressed and incredibly excited at the same time. It's like doing acid and vodka at the same time. Your brain doesn't know which direction to go in. Everything is terrible. But people who write about diseases and outbreaks and pandemics, there is a tendency, because we're trying to tell a story, a fiction story, where even killing everyone is not a crime because it is a fiction story. There's a tendency to go looking for dramatic importance and for things that will have impact and go, ooh, what if I lock Miranda in the quarantine zone and now Tristan has to try to get her out? Because otherwise they're going to be separated and he's going to be left alone with 2 small children. And won't that be beautifully dramatic and exciting? Oh my God, such valor, such drama. No. If you are in the quarantine zone, you stay in the quarantine zone. We respect quarantines. There is nothing heroic about violating the quarantine line. But we have given people for literal generations that as a shape of story. We have given them that as when there is a horrifying outbreak, you go into the quarantine zone and you get your loved ones out, or you don't really love them. If there is a horrifying outbreak and you have been a virtuous person, go ahead and get out of that quarantine zone. It's okay. You don't have the flesh-melting super rabies yet. Yes, you do. And so many people are going to die. So I think that we have been, as the community, deeply irresponsible. Every story where breaking quarantine has been valorized is another nail in a hell of a lot of actual real-world coffins. It's kind of the Jaws effect in a terrible way.
And will you write for a number of, like you do a couple different genres, and maybe for those of our audience listening, maybe you could walk us through the different genres that you write for and the pseudonym names that they can find you under.
So I primarily write urban fantasy and modern fantasy as Seanan McGuire. And my flagship series in that area are the October Day books and Encrypted books, both of which are from DAW, and then the Wayward Children over at Tor.com Publishing. And I have a variety of other standalones and duologies. And then I do biomedical science fiction thrillers under the name Mira Grant. And Mira has one completed trilogy, Parasitology. That's pretty much a closed world at this point, because I don't really have anything else currently to say there. I would like to have more to say. I haven't found it. We have the Newsflesh series, which is 5 books so far and may eventually continue. I don't know. And then we have my Scientifically Accurate Mermaids, which is Rolling in the Deep and Into the Drowning Deep. And they are a delight. Mira has also done a bunch of novellas through Subterranean Press. I highly recommend them. I think they're some of my best work. They're definitely some of my nastiest work. I do not recommend reading Kingdom of Needle and Bone right now if you haven't already. It's not good to read during a pandemic. I don't suggest reading it during the pandemic. It will make you sad. And then as A. Deborah Baker, I write the middle grade up and under series through Tor.com Publishing. And those books are proof that if you're nerdy enough, the snake will eat its own tail, because they are fictional texts that originally appeared in my book, Middle Game. So in Middle Game, A. Deborah Baker wrote and published these books roughly contemporaneous with The Wizard of Oz, and they have left a cultural impact. So it feels a little arrogant to then be writing them and publishing them myself, but I get to write them and publish them as A. Deborah Baker. So my fictional author, who was supposed to be so powerful that she rewrote reality, has literally started publishing books in the real world. And that is meta on a level that just makes me really happy.
That's awesome. Well, you must also be pretty excited about the Paramount Pictures and them picking up some of your work. And I'd like you to tell us about that. But also, I kind of want to know, when someone picks up your work, do you feel that that's the work you wanted to get picked up, or is there another series or another book you're like, oh, I wish someone took that one, and I wish they were turning that into a movie or show? Can you tell us about that?
So the thing about film options, I try to explain it to people fairly badly as, what if I wanted to rent your house to throw a party? So I want to throw a party in your house, but it is very important that only I be throwing a party in your house. I will give you $1,000 American to hold your house for me until June 1st, 2022. You can still live there. You can do everything normally. You just cannot throw a party in the house. Now, if June 1st comes and goes without me throwing a party, you get to keep that $1,000. On the other hand, I can throw a party at any time in that 6-month period. You can't stop me. And if on May 31st, I go, hey, I want to extend my party option another 3 months, I can give you another 500. And that's kind of how options work. You don't get that other 500 unless I extend. I left a part out, which is if I do throw the party, you get another 5,000. So that's a good enough reason to let me rent your house effectively for $1,000. You could get a lot more money if it inconveniences you in any way, and otherwise, hey, free money. And that is how media licenses work, is they go, we'll give you $1,000 to say that only we can make this movie. And if we make the movie, we'll give you another 5. And if we don't make the movie, you get to keep the 1,000. And 90% of the time, they don't make the movie. They just want to keep someone else from making the movie for a little while. So I have had various things come in and out of option since I started publishing. I don't care what they option. What I care about is that they option, because money changes, film changes everything. Television changes everything. Movies change everything. If you're an urban fantasy fan, if that's how you've encountered me, you've probably heard of Jim Butcher and the Dresden Files. Well, I sell better on a book per book basis than he did before his relatively shitty, canceled in a single series, short-lived Sci-Fi Channel show.
I'm sorry.
Just having a television show that by the numbers almost no one watched, that didn't even make it a full season, changed the number of people who knew his name to such an extreme degree that every time he puts out a book now, he's number one on the New York Times list. Money changes everything. I grew up on welfare. I grew up cutting the mold off of bread and knowing how to tell by sniff exactly how close to going off it was. I am a phenomenally picky eater as an adult, in part because I can afford to be. And so the idea of the amount of money that you get from just one movie or television show actually being made, even if it's bad, is enthralling. I'm an American, y'all are up in Canada, but as an American, I pay $500 a month just to have medical insurance. All that allows me to do is talk to the doctor. If I get into a serious enough accident, it will take some of the cost off, but I have to do co-pays. I pay for my prescriptions. If anything does go seriously wrong, I'm going to have to pay for that. I have very high blood pressure. We're not sure why, says the girl who writes 7 books a year recreationally. But I have very high blood pressure. We were trying to figure out why just before COVID started. And one of the things that could be the source is it is possible that there can be a narrowing in the channel between your kidneys and the rest of your body. And when that happens, it drives your blood pressure up, and it's bad. And if that is what is going on, we need to know so that we can fix it, because if we don't fix it, you're going to die. So my doctor had me go and get my kidneys ultrasounded. I paid $800 for this privilege, and that is on top of the $500 a month that I already have to pay just to be able to get the medication that keeps me alive. So the idea of having the amount of money that you get from even that bad show, even that show that fails, I don't care what they option anything. Tell me that you're going to make the October Day books into a porno. I do not give two fucks. Just pay me. But of course, I'm an artist, so I live on moonbeams and joy.
Have the October Day books ever been optioned?
Yes, they are currently under option with Kung Fu Monkey Productions, which is John Rogers' production company. He is one of the forces behind the Librarians and Leverage. Margaret Dunlap is our head writer. She did the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, and I would very much like to see that show go forward. We've been in development for a long time, but we're still trying.
That sounds like the perfect show, in my opinion.
I know, right?
Librarians.
That was a fun show.
I loved it, and I love October Day, the whole series. So
and Jim Butcher, whatever that series was, you like that one too, right?
There's not many urban fantasies that have been optioned for TV, so I go with what's out there. But there are books like October Day that I'd prefer to see on the screen. Strong female characters.
Right. We've only had a couple of the female-led urban fantasies actually make it to screen. Kelly Armstrong's Women of the Other World did, although they did so in such a modified form that I bounced early. And then Tanya Huff's Blood Books did.
Yeah.
And Tanya is a Canadian author, and even though that series did not do awesomely, I am fairly sure it paid off the mortgage on her house. So, go Team Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think
Kelly,
we're right in between Kelly and Tanya. Tanya's in Toronto, and Kelly's just about an hour west of here.
Elmer,
she's in Elmer,
awesome.
so we're right in between those two.
So you could egg both their houses in one day.
We could. Bitten, the series Bitten was filmed like 20 minutes from where we are now.
That's fantastic. I love them. They are both wonderful, wonderful humans and deserve all the success in the universe.
Yeah, Kelly's really sweet. So I know that you don't give book spoilers, and this is kind of a selfish question for me, and I think this might come out after it, but can you give any Hugo dress spoilers?
Okay, so I literally spent 20 minutes ranting about all 5 generations of My Little Pony. I don't think there's anything wrong with a selfish question. Every year's dress has a name. This year's dress name is Fuck You, I'm Persephone, which is great. It was down to either Fuck You, I'm Persephone or Space Mimosa, but we're saving Space Mimosa for the next time I need to do the Hugos. And I am very put out at the people who decided that Worldcon should be in the middle of the winter and harvest holidays, because I am not a tiny lady. I think this applies to tiny ladies too, but I don't know how much. I am a moderate to large sized lady, and that means that I wear plus sized formal wear. And plus sized formal wear requires a lot of foundational support. Like I get a corset to go with each Hugo dress so that it fits and the dress will fit and everything's proper. And this year's dress, if I gain even half a pound, the corset will not close correctly. But by the time we discovered that, we were too close to Worldcon for me to get a replacement corset. So I am living on lettuce and hatred right now. I did American Thanksgiving on the lettuce and hatred diet.
Is the dress worth it though?
Oh, the dress is so worth it. Oh my God, it's so good. It's like 90 layers of tulle. I'm pretty sure this thing deserves its own area code. It is definitely going to take people out when I try to sit down. It's going to occupy the 2 seats to either side of me. I'm so excited. Amy Meverson made me a wrap, and then Alexia Portner made me a purse. So I will be fully accessorized. And my purse is large enough to hold all the cards that come out of a box of Magic the Gathering collector boosters. So Amy will be feeding me boosters throughout the Hugo ceremony to keep me from throwing up on anyone.
So the Magic cards, I've seen you talk a little bit about it on Twitter, but opening the Magic cards helps with the blood pressure that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like, what's your favorite part of the Magic cards?
We think that it's the dopamine hit of the blind box combined with knowing basically what I'm going to get. I know what is in a set of Magic. It's 300 to 400 cards, but I have a general sense of the set by the time I'm opening packs. And so just opening a pack and getting excited about the good cards I got and look at the shiny artwork and look at the pretty, and now I get to keep the cards. I have a blind box problem. I have for a long time. I just love blind boxes. I love knowing that if I pay for something, I'm getting a thing I'll definitely like, because I wouldn't buy the blind box if not, and it will be worth the cost of the blind box. But what am I getting? I don't know. It's a mystery. It's so good. It's the adult equivalent of putting a quarter in those bouncy ball machines in the supermarket. You're getting a bouncy ball, but will it be the really pretty sparkly orange one? Or will it be the one that looks kind of like a root beer float dropped into puke? You don't know yet.
And you do tabletop games. So do you incorporate, like, how does that, do you ever get ideas from tabletops that work in their way into books, or do they relate in any way?
So the entirety of the Encrypted series is basically spun out of a 1950s set urban fantasy game that I was in that my friend Phil ran. That's called Martin's Passage. So if you ever encounter references to Martin's Passage, that was the game that Encrypted started out as. Now,
didn't
all
know
the
that.
characters were in the 1950s, so the only one who's really crossed over is Rose Marshall, who was mine. I haven't, stolen anything, but it kind of gave me the setting and the sense. And Martin's Passage got turned into Buckley, very much so. So things do get incorporated, things get picked up and lifted because you're playing with characters. I'm playing a lot of D&D right now. And my only regret about that is it is super fucking hard to just pick up a D&D character and take them to an urban fantasy series. They stick out like a sore thumb. Haven't figured out the mechanism yet, but I'll get there.
Yeah, it's the armor. It's the armor that makes them stand out.
It's the part where I mostly play tieflings, and those are a copyrighted character type that belongs to someone else. But they're My Little Pony people. They come in all different colors, and they set shit on fire, and I love them.
So you are, I guess I want to know, are you a Star Wars fan? Because you've written a tie-in to The Last Jedi, and you've got a novella. Now, I haven't read this yet. It is coming. I'm going to be reading this soon. What am I in for? And are you a Star Wars fan?
I am a bigger Doctor Who and Star Trek fan, but I don't think it's actually possible to exist as a nerd in our modern space and not either be somewhat of a Star Wars fan or have such a massive hate boner for Star Wars that the mention of the franchise causes you to start screaming incoherently.
I'm going through I gotta say, I'm going through a bit of a Star Wars rebellious stage right now. Like, I was a huge fan, grew up with it, and like that lately I did this with the Beatles many years ago too, where I was like, the Beatles fucking suck, because I was raised on that. And then I came around, I'm like, no, the Beatles, especially with this new thing, I'm like, oh, the Beatles are the best. What are we doing? So I hope I get back to Star Wars again, but
yeah, good luck with it. I actually don't like the Beatles, because when I was a kid, the Monkees had a TV show on Nickelodeon, which was, I don't know if you had Nickelodeon in Canada.
Oh, well, we got the Monkees show. Oh yeah, we used to watch.
Okay,
that
so
too.
Nickelodeon was basically the Disney Junior of my generation. Like, it was just a channel that was all for kids, and it was amazing. It was the best thing ever. And they aired the Monkees show, and so I saw the Monkees before I encountered the Beatles. And somebody went, oh, you like the Monkees? I got to play the Beatles for you. And of course, they didn't play the most kid-friendly Beatles songs. They didn't start out with like Yellow Submarine or something. They went straight for the deep-cut Beatles bullshit. And I'm like, this sounds like a cheap Monkees knockoff band.
Well, they are,
They were so offended by that assertion that they did not correct me. So for literally years, I thought that the Beatles were a cheap Monkees knockoff band. I now know intellectually that this is not correct, but and on that level where you connect to things, no, the Monkees are the superior musical group. I am delighted to give you an opportunity to receive more hate mail about this episode than the ranting about quarantine or the My Little Pony shouting. That is always my goal, is to give people a new reason to be mad at people who aren't me.
That's okay. You're a musician as well. You were doing folk music, but it's been a while since you've released an album. Is that something that you're still doing?
I am currently recording an album, though currently recording in a time of COVID is a very euphemistic way of putting things. It's called Saint of Thorns. Unfortunately, my recording engineer, Christoph Clover, is down in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I am not willing to fly for non-essential reasons as long as there is an airborne pandemic and people think that wearing a piece of cloth over your mouth and nose to avoid breathing horrifying pathogens in my direction is somehow a political act rather than just an act of common human decency. So I haven't been able to have a recording session in a while. We did just order a reprint of Wicked Girls, which is one of my existing studio albums. So I should have those soon, and we'll be supplying them to Filk dealers after the Christmas holidays.
Filk dealers. I like the sound of that.
Yeah. Filk is the folk music of science fiction and fantasy. Mm-hmm. And we have people who are dedicated Filk dealers. They just sell Filk albums.
I don't mean to backtrack, but can you circle back to Star Wars and just tell us about that novella and that and Star Wars and how much you hate it?
I did not say I hated Star Wars. I said
I know. I did that for you. Sorry.
So basically, I got asked if I wanted to do something for Lucasfilm, and I said sure, because I will agree to write for basically any intellectual property that I don't actively despise. And at the time was trying very assiduously to convince Marvel that they should hire me to write for the X-Men, and figured that working for Lucasfilm would show Marvel that I could be trusted with a non-public IP. And so they gave us some breakdowns on The Last Jedi. They gave us some concept art. They made us sign NDAs that would have made it worth my kidneys to leak that art to anyone. And I did not, because I respect a good NDA. And I wrote from there, worked from there. And I got to work on a book with Ray Carson and Saladin Ahmed, who are some good friends of mine. And that was very pleasant.
All right. So we've got an extra host here.
Yep. For those who don't see video, Miranda has just popped back in with a very small human. Hello, very small human. Oh, now Miranda's camera has gone dead. Very small human, if you can hear me, you don't have kneecaps yet. Congratulations on that.
You are a lot of fun to talk to, Sean, and I just want to say you're just
I mean, you are asking leading questions. Like, want to talk about My Little Pony? Hey, you know what's fun is respecting quarantine. You know, it's kind of pre-primed party game fun questions version of things.
Well, something we want to do in the months and year or so to come is we want to see what authors get along and want to hang out on an episode as well, and chat and maybe even do trivia together, or just do something. We just want to. I think a lot of people are interested in finding out about you guys and just hanging out with you. So maybe that's something you might want to do.
So if you put me and Cory Doctorow in a room, what you're going to get is a dissertation on the history of Disney theme parks.
Okay.
Because we both know far too much about Disney. So unless you want that, if you do want that, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cool.
I think it's great to listen to people talk about and get excited about something, like anything, when you can hear that they're super excited about something, even if it's not necessarily your special interest. It's still great to listen to people talk about it.
Seanan, you are awesome. You were just a blast. I love seeing you, Seanan, where you just kind of want to hang out too, and you're not bullshitting anyone with anything, and I really appreciate that. So it's really fun to get that with you.
Yeah, I figured out a long time ago that I am using all of my pretending to be someone I'm not coins on pretending to be a human and not an alien plant. So I will just give up and talk about My Little Ponies and dice and cats and magic cards constantly.
Thank you. It was so wonderful to talk to you. Yeah, and thank you for writing so many worlds that I can escape to and enjoy. And it must be really exciting to live inside your brain with all that going on.
It is difficult to sleep sometimes, but we get a lot of stuff done around here, so it works out. Thank you for reading. I do appreciate it. And thank you for having me tonight.
Well, we said that was going to be entertaining, and it certainly was. Seanan is so much fun, and we hope we can talk with her again and have some wacky conversations. Thank you for joining us, and watch for some special episodes coming out in the next few weeks. All right, until next time.